Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
My dear friends, we're here for one thing that has come of interest here in Laredo, and that is we live in a beautiful community. Many of us know each other for generations. Some of us went to school with each other. Some of us, we entrust our school systems, our high schools, our principals, our teachers to educate our children. But something has come up that has crawled underneath, and it has shown its ugly face, especially here in Laredo. And that is a school to prison pipeline district. Many people are gonna jump at the conclusion, but listen, I understand your opinions, but I'm gonna show you facts. I want you to understand this is not to point fingers at anybody. This is to see how we can come up with a solution to fix a problem. You know, everybody talks about crime has gone down, but yet incarceration rate has gone up. So has the incarceration rate of our youth, and is led by these school districts. I'm going to read to you a couple of things that came of age, okay? And we can point out a couple of things. The reason I'm talking about this is because I have seen a growth of abuse of power towards and against our students, our children, our nephews, our grandkids that go to a specific school district here in Laredo, and that is the United Independent School District. I have here the student code of conduct for this year. I was troubled, like many, to believe that a school district can become a school to prison pipeline district. That's the name of it. And I had my questions. So I had an independent source do a research on, I told them, I want you to compare the student code of conduct to laws, policies that show and manufacture a school to prison pipeline district. We came back with 14 points. 14 points that they have policies in here against. But those 14 points exhibit the traits of a school to prison pipeline district. Now, I'm not saying it has become, I'm just saying that if it did, let's change the road and move in a different direction. We have some great trustees that are in there, some level-headed individuals, some people that have to focus, and let's learn and see the solution before it's too late. Again, I'm going to explain to you all. I'm going to read this, and I'm going to put the PDF on the links on YouTube, or you can call me and I'll email them to you, or if I can, we'll put it on Facebook or any of the other sources. The independent source that I used was a company that I used something called Fiber to get stuff in there, and it cost some money to get, but I did this because I wanted to. It's that gut feeling that you get, especially like if you're going into a dark alley and you get that little feeling. Well, that's the same gut feeling that I got when I experienced certain things with United Independent School District. So I'm going to read to you all what it is. The school to prison pipeline refers to a school policies and procedures that drive many of our nation's school children into a pathway that begins in school and ends up in the criminal justice system. Okay, what is that? Well, here's what the research says. What makes a school to prison pipeline? A school to prison pipeline is an ongoing challenge and trend in the public school systems in America due to inequity in the educational system, discriminatory policies towards students and families of color, lack of resources aimed at supporting at-risk youth, economic disadvantage within the community, school uniform violations, profanity and talkback now often leads to suspension, expulsion, or arrest. Many under-resourced schools become pipeline gateways by placing increased resilience and reliance on police rather than teachers and administrators to maintain discipline. One of the characteristics of a school to prison pipeline district is having a police force in the district. And I know people are going to say, we need safety, look at the school shooters, this and this and this, but that can all be there, you know. Did the police of a school system prevent what happened in Uvalde? In fact, they enhanced it. Did do the same thing over in Parkland? They enhanced it. Yet there is some good ones out there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's one of the traits. One of the traits. The other one is no tolerance. But let's continue. Public schools have made continued progress in shifting the disciplinary policies away from punitive zero tolerance models and towards positive behavioral interventions. But there continues to be a disproportionate number of students ending up in the school to prison pipeline. Okay? This comes from folks that are not economically saved, low economic areas, or those of color. Is this a racial thing? Many people claim so. There's a lot of civil activist groups out there claiming that is what it's for, that the school prison pipeline was to prevent blacks and Latinos from getting somewhere in life and integrating them into our penal system. Is that true? There's a lot of questions on that. Okay? But let's look at United High School. United High School sits in Laredo. Laredo, the majority are Latinos or Hispanics or whatever you want to call yourself. Understand? And there's a clue. But what happens here? Now, I can continue reading this, but the main thing, like I said, I'm going to put it in there. Let's go into something that is obvious that we have. Zero tolerance policies. Zero tolerance policies likely contribute to high attrition rates of black students and Latino students in Texas public schools. In an additional analysis to IDRA annual attrition study released earlier this month, IDRA compared the trend lines for attrition rates to those of discipline data for the state of Texas. The historical high attrition rate for each race ethnicity group parallels the period when zero tolerance policies gained momentum in Texas. Lower attrition rates for each group coincide with Texas legislative attempts to relax zero tolerance approach under specific circumstances. Zero tolerance was originally used for drug enforcement, but it expanded into the public schools into a policy of punitive and exclusionary consequences for students' infractions, regardless of severity of circumstance. While zero tolerance practice vary, the general approach is the same, removing students who disrupt the learning environment. However, there is no research to support this zero tolerance makes schools any safer. Imagine that. You know what zero tolerance is? We have the right as individuals to protect ourselves. We have the right to stand up for our opinion. That's a constitutional right. Here, they're stripping those rights away. How so, Paul? Well, very simple. If somebody comes up to you in the hallway in school and hits you, that's an assault, and you defend yourself, you are sent, more likely you're going to be given a ticket, more likely you're going to be taken, more likely you're going to end up at Step Academy or juvenile for defending yourself. Imagine that. But if that happens in the street, if I'm walking down the street, somebody hits me and I defend myself, that's self-defense on my part. Now, if a student is walking down the street and another student from the same district hits you, both of them are expelled. Imagine that. So now the policies, the policing of that continue with the students if they're outside the boundaries of the school. Imagine that. I witnessed something very awful in a meeting by a leader of the Soul Gang Prevention over there. This lady stated that if you were caught walking with two or more, you were labeled a gang member, a gang. And if you ended up with 2 warnings, they were going to release your name to the police for you to be placed on a list. That's called profiling. So just that attitude of that individual resonates the attitude of the majority that work at UISD. Understand what I'm saying?
Term is going to benefit the district. So last year it was primarily reactive, right? We were getting the threat, we were identifying them, discipline, all the issues that go with that, and then pretty much the campuses were left to making sure that they were monitoring. Well, now we have a department that's going to be focused on monitoring that and making sure that they're getting the help that they need and so forth. In addition to that, the long-term plan is we want to be proactive and start trying to identify those students before they act out, before they get to the point where we have some kind of a threat that we have to react to. So that's our long-term goal. It's baby steps. I will share with you that UISD is light years ahead of everybody else. Let's remember that, okay? There's a lot of school districts that are just starting what we're talking about. And we're already on the second phase of what we're doing. So that's where Dr. Gansa and Elvira are going to be in charge of that threat assessment. And I'm using the word generically, but that's really the treatment and the care of these students, and then trying to figure out a plan to be proactive and identifying them before.
We have to change that. We're going to continue. Now, let's continue with those points. I'm going to read the first point, Number 1 is high school student code, dress code. Imagine that. Policies by UISD. Students who violate dress and grooming standards established for such an activity may be removed or excluded from the activity for a period determined by the principal or sponsor, and may be subject to other disciplinary actions such as specified in the student code of conduct. Imagine that. Now, government standards. Schools that enforce strict dress codes enroll more blacks or Hispanic students and are more likely to remove students from class, which can be detrimental to the environment and development of learning. That's a government standard right here. That's what it says. We can go down. The next one is inappropriate behavior of students. It says a policy and what should be done. Bullying and harassment violation. Let's read that. Policies by UISD. In addition to the penalties and consequences set forth of the Student Code of Conduct pursuant to state law, on the request of the parent or any other person with authority to act on behalf of the student who is a victim of bullying, the Board of Trustees or the board's designee may transfer a student who engaged in bullying to another classroom at the campus to which the victim may be assigned at the time the bullying occurred, or a campus in the district. In other words, they'll remove them. The district is not required to provide transportation to a student who transfers to another campus. There are no hearing and appeals for transfer due to bullying behavior. Policies and requirements for schools to prevent and respond to bullying behavior. 1. Statements prohibiting bullying and retaliation. Procedures for notifying parent or guardian of the alleged victim in alleged bullying. Statements regarding actions a student should take to obtain assistance and intervention in response to bullying. Statements regarding the available counseling options for a student who is a victim or a witness to bullying or who engages in bullying. The policy requirements for schools to prevent and respond to bullying behavior. That's a government code. That's not in here. Or if it is, I would like to speak to the superintendent and for him to point out where it is inside the code of conduct, because it's nowhere to be found. Now, it continues. Those are just 3 of the points. One of the other points is harassment on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or disability. Sexual harassment and sexual abuse. Let's read that. The parent or other advisor may accompany a student throughout the complaint investigation process. Depending upon the circumstances, the investigation will be coordinated, if necessary, through the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, which they have violated. I was a witness to that. The Children's Advocacy Center of Webb County, Laredo, the Webb County District Attorney Office, nothing was ever done. They violated that. So that's what I'm talking by experience. That's what opened my eyes to see what was going on. The Laredo Police Department, the UISD Police Department, which was a lack of, they didn't want to do anything about it. They were too busy pretending to be law officers and not doing a peace officer's job. There's a big difference. And other law enforcement agencies, the district administration, according to the district's administrative procedures, which they don't follow. This is what the government should say. A student who is a victim of sexual assault or aggravated sexual assault by any other student or the same campus, upon parental request, be transferred to a different campus than the offender or the neighboring school district. If the victim chooses not to transfer, the board must transfer the offender to a different campus, which they haven't done, or to an alternative education program or juvenile justice alternative education program. Listen, the next one, students with disabilities. That's a very crucial one, because school to prison pipeline districts abuse kids against their civil rights, and they go after kids that have their special needs. Okay, and they do it right. They'll end up in juvenile. They'll end up in the STEP Academy. So students with disabilities, another one. Okay, it's another point. The next point, inappropriate conduct. Confiscated devices. Placement order. It's another point. What is a placement order for you guys to know? After the conference, if a student is placed in the DEPT, in other words, they're going to STEP Academy, the campus administrator will issue a placement order. A copy of the placement order will be provided to the student's parent guardian, a copy of the disciplinary alternative education program placement order, and all the information required by section 52.04 of the Family Code will be delivered to the authorized officer at juvenile. They don't do that. They do it after the fact. They try to cover up the mistakes. It's really a mess there. Okay? Once more, here's the link of what it should do. Parents, we have a problem. Educators there in United, we have a problem. Trustees, we have a problem. We have to come up with solutions. We can't be placing the same people in the same committees that are going to be, hey boys, you need people that are going to go out there and tell you, you guys got a problem. Let's fix it. And that's what you all aren't doing. Now, this creeped up into UISD. It didn't happen overnight. This probably took about 15, 20 years. Oh, you know what? That policy looks good, let's implement it. You know what? This policy the school district is doing, let's implement it. Because it looks nice. There are laws against this. There's 14 points. Okay? 14 points that are inside here. Right here, this is all the 14 points. And it also says what should be done by the government standards. And what has, when you compare it, they're not being done. There's some good verbiage in there. It's really pretty good. You guys should read this. Anyway. Anyway, folks, like I said, I'm putting everything out there for you all to make your own opinion. Because I remind myself all the time, we all live in a beautiful country, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I understand teachers, educators are going to say, but their kids are bad, they're misbehaved, they don't know respect at home. I agree with you on that. I've been an educator in a different field for a long time. Okay, 33 years to be most. I'm going to be going on 35 years, 34 years actually. This year, 34 years. Next year will be 35 years. Okay, that I've been teaching individuals a science, a sweet science, a science of how to control violence. Okay, I understand how parents act. I deal with them all the time. I understand that they bring kids into my school every week and they say, teach them discipline. Because there's no parental skills. We got young parents coming in. When I became a parent, I didn't know how to be a parent. I had to see how my parents treated me and how I was going to treat my children. Okay? And if I didn't like something my parents did, well, I changed it to a betterment. That's considered parenting. But there's parents out there that don't know how. There's no classes for that. Okay? People say, I heard this through individuals in the STEP Academy. It's because they're fatherless children. All these come from single moms. You know how much I've heard about that? I was divorced. I have children. I try as much as I am being alienated from them to be in the life of my child. As a father that cares, I see that going through. I understand what you all go through. There's no secrets to that. Being a father, sometimes you have to take more, and what's more important is your children than what is important for you at that time frame. Maybe you're not going to get that new truck you wanted, but you know what? My children are going to be great. That's a difference. But I do see the respect that people, I understand the rationale some teachers have. And I've talked to many teachers that come here that want to voice their opinions, and they're afraid because of retaliation. I've had parents come in here crying, but they're afraid to go to the administrators because of retaliation against their children. Okay? So we have a problem. So I'm asking you all trustees, you all have to stand up. Right now's the time, and administrators, and do what's right for our children. Change the policies that you placed in here that make a school-to-prison pipeline district out of UISD, and change them where the quote is coming from. Understand that? The police department, I've witnessed the lack of Miranda rights on children. Everything's coming back the same. Where do we live in? Do we live in a communist nation? We have no rights. Everybody wants to go up and say, oh, we have locus parentis, we can do what we want. No, you can't do what you want. There's a lot of case law against that. Okay, be very careful. Children have a lot of rights. Don't violate them. Not anymore. Okay? There's a lot of problems throughout. Yeah, I get it. It's worth some progress. But if you're going to be incarcerating everybody in there, you're not telling me how good of a system you are because you passed a state class or a state exam. You know how you know when you have champions and you have champions in the school? When I used to take mine in boxing, I took 27 people to the Golden Gloves with 24 winning. Still haven't been broken yet. I got people here that have gyms, boxing gyms, 20 years plus, 10 years plus, don't have what I did in 6 months, 6 years, understand? So that's a school that you can say, you know what, I want to go to that school because they're taking champions, they're producing champions, they're winning champions. UISD, I challenge you this. Go back 10 years. 10 years. 2013 to 2010. And tell me how many police officers that graduated on that class. So graduates of that class, how many became police officers? How many became dentists? How many became engineers? How many became military? And of those that became military, how many became high-ranking officers? I want you to tell me in the last 13 years how many became doctors, lawyers, educators. Then we can start seeing if your system and your high schools are good. But not by a test of the state. It's how many you make that are good compared to society. Understand? So I'll leave you with that. This, you guys can get one from UISD if they'll allow you to get one. And this, I'll put the PDF at the end of the description. We have a lot of things to change. I'm not knocking you guys. I'm not knocking you guys out there in UISD. Our children go there. They go there for a reason. We pay taxes for you guys to do good, but we also want the best for them. Okay? And if we have strayed ourselves and led ourselves into school-to-prison pipeline district, let's start finding solutions to change back. That's the key. Solutions. Until next time, if you find this effective, like. If you find it not to your liking, say whatever you wish. Opinions vary. Accept what's official. And what's official are studies. And that's the only way you can get numbers. Remember that. Now, here's one before I forget. Many teachers say, oh, the parents, they spend more time with the parents. Actually not. schools spend about 7 to 7.5 hours they have with our kids, give or take the traveling back and forth, which can be anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes on a school bus ride. Okay, so between 7 to 8 hours a day a school district has our children. Most parents, and I'm gonna look it up real quick here for you guys to see. How long do they spend with their kids? Okay. Here's what it says, and I'll put this up there. It comes out straight out of Google. However, parents say the average over 80 minutes a day with all age groups. Children of single parents spend less time talking to the parents and those with two adults at home on an average 67 minutes. That's single parents versus 81 minutes per day. Remember, kids sleep, kids eat, kids are doing homework, they're doing other things. And here's another study, and this is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. All in all, here they say that with all the activities and homeworks and so on and so forth, parents, two that live in a household, they spend roughly about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it says right there. I'll post it up there for you guys to see it. And that's per day. Now, the other one, single parents and under 12 and so on and so forth, I'll put the graph up there for you guys to see exactly what I'm talking about. Again, folks, let's make change, let's make solutions. It's not against anybody and trying to tell somebody how to do your job. It's how to better your job. Remember, I love when teachers come up with this. It takes a community to raise a child, an old African proverb. Yeah. It takes a community, all right. But it also takes a community to make a criminal. All right, till next time, much peace.